Good evening, everybody.
Hi, Peter.
If you haven't found a chair yet, I would ask you to please do that. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this special Veterans Celebration when we recognize those in our audience who have served in the armed forces of the United States. And they are being honored here tonight with a special presentation by Randy Hedrick on the Band of Brothers, those members of Easy Company of the 2nd Battalion, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne Division. Veterans Day was originally known as Armistice Day, the day that formally ended the hostilities in World War I, the 11th day of the 11th hour of the 11th month. In 1954, it was renamed as Veterans Day. And so today we salute all those who have served in the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard, and the Merchant Marines. And I would like to ask all the veterans to please stand. We have a gift for you. And the bags were decorated by the Kids for Christ. And I got mine this morning, and it was extra special to know that the kids had decorated it. And now I would like to invite everybody else to stand as you are able. The screen over here on this wall will have the flag on it, and we'd like to everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Now I'd like to invite you to please bow your heads while I offer the invocation. We gather today with grateful hearts to honor the courage, sacrifice, and steadfast service of the men and women who have answered our nation's call. Grant us humility as we remember those who served in danger and in peace, and give us the wisdom to value the freedom their service preserved. Bless the veterans among us with peace, dignity, and the care and need that they deserve. Comfort families who have carried heavy burdens, and mourn those who gave their lives for others. Inspire our leaders and citizens to pursue justice, unity, and compassion so that the sacrifices of the past shape a more honorable future. Let gratitude guide our words and our actions today. May this remembrance strengthen our commitment to serve one another, protect the vulnerable, and uphold the principles for which our veterans stood. We ask this in Jesus' name, and all God's people came together and said, Amen.
Okay, we'd like you to stand if you are able and sing along with us, starting with America the Beautiful.
Above the fruited plain.
Now my country, 'tis of thee. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the Pilgrim's pride, from every mountainside let freedom ring. Let music swell the breeze and ring from all the trees, sweet freedom song. Let mortal tongues awake, let all the breath partake, let rocks their silence break, the sound prolong. Our fathers, God, to thee, author of liberty, to thee we sing. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy light. Protect us by thy might, great God our King.
You may be seated. Good evening.
Hi, Mary.
So, yeah, I'm Mary Haley. I'm the pastor here at Connect2Christ Church, and I welcome you. Such a blessing to have you here and to enjoy this celebration with you. While I am going to share just a few minutes with you, there'll be team people that are coming through, and they will be asking you if you would like a ham sandwich, a turkey sandwich, or a vegetable sandwich, okay? Within the box that you will be getting, there is, I believe, iced tea, unsweetened iced tea in there, chips, and a cookie, and that will be brought to you. There also, we have two beautiful Greek salads in the back, and you're welcome to get up and go get a portion of the Greek salad in the back if you'd like to do that. So when the servers come by, just tell them what you would like, because they're going to start passing those out now. Okay? This evening, you're going to enjoy. How many of you know Dr. Hedrick, if you're here? Oh, Randy, you are in trouble, buddy. Yeah. Such an amazing experience that all of us. So Randy and Linda and John and I went on this tour that Randy's going to share with you. We went together. And I'm going to tell you that it was life-changing for me. In fact, I had so many emotions. Have you ever gone to those places and all of a sudden you feel so joyful one minute, and then you're just like, oh, that's just that had to have been a very dark time. And it was just like that for me. And I remember thinking to myself, this is so important for us to know. This is so important for us to remember our history. And so we traveled a lot, right? And several different places. So we actually flew into Paris, but we're not going to tell you all the things we did in Paris. We'll start with Normandy. So in Normandy, we went to Normandy, and then into Belgium, and then Germany and Austria. And so you're going to see a lot. He's going to share a lot of information with you, and I pray that it's a blessing for you. While you're being served, I'm going to ask Randy to come on up, and he's, I'm sure, going to get started. What you're going to do is you're going to enjoy your meal while he shares the presentation, okay? So I want you to know that not only are there goodies on the table that I want you to partake of that are just waiting for you there, but the boxes will be coming. If you do not want iced tea, then we have water. and we can get that for you. Okay? Any questions? No? All right. Very good. Come on up, Randy.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you hear me all right? Well, you're standing close. Can they hear me?
Just messing.
Well, thank all of y'all for coming. This was a very special time for us. I've wanted to do this tour for probably 15 years. And Linda's not a World War II buff, so I had to find the right people to go with me, you know. So we did that and everything. But the whole thing that the veterans are fighting for freedom and everything, and for us to have freedom to do what we want to do and everything, and to have, you know, long enduring friendships. We've got some people here that I went to high school with and everything, and here they are. And Jeff Scott was my roommate for what, 2-3 years?
Yeah.
And then you went and got married. You traded me in for Judy. But I guess that's a good deal. 47 years? Yeah. God, that's, congratulations. That is special. Okay, now, there is so much to put into this and so many different things to say that I'm probably not going to be able to do it all, but some of this we're going to go slow and some of it we're going to go fast and everything. And we're going to move right along and everything there. But this is, even though this is World War II and most of the World War II veterans are gone and everything, I recognize the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day, but this is World War II and in the European theater. And we also have people here that...
Randy, we got just a little snafu we got to fix, I think.
Uh-oh, a snafu. Sorry. That's okay. I can do it. But anyways, we took this tour to see everything that's going on and everything. And we learned so much there. And it was fun putting this, took a lot of time to put the presentation together, but it was fun because it got me to get immersed back in the trip and what it all meant and everything. A big part of this tour, if you're ever to do this, it's based on the Band of Brothers series that came out in 2001. If you want to see that, it's a 10-part, 1-hour each episode miniseries on Netflix for free. If you get a streaming TV, you can, and I remember seeing bits and pieces of it, but I liked it so much I wanted to go back and do it. So we went ahead and got going on that. And what it does is it follows the specific little division there. Thank you, Justin. You might have to come back and do that again. But anyways, it follows there was one particular company, Easy Company. These was a paratroopers that went in behind the lines the night before D-Day, and they fought on D-Day behind the lines there. And then they went to Bastogne for Battle of the Bulge, and then from there they went and liberated one of the concentration camps. And from there they went up, and at the very end of the war they ended up at the Eagle's Nest, which was Hitler's mountaintop retreat. So it follows them through this, is what the theme of the tour was and the theme of the movie series was, and I would highly recommend it. But anyways, we have that YouTube video. Can y'all play the YouTube video? This is a promotional video, but it kind of gets you an idea of what all we're going to be talking about tonight and everything. It's about a 2-minute thing, and this was a great thing here. So.
Hi, I'm James Ryan from Beaches of Normandy Tours. This annual take on our Band of Brothers tour is a commemorative 12-day journey celebrating the heroes who changed history on D-Day. From the beaches of Normandy to Hitler's Eagle's Nest, this tour hits the highlights of the American World War II war effort, with special stops focused on anniversary commemorations. The first days of the tour dive into all 5 landing beaches. with a special focus on the American landing sectors of Omaha Beach and Utah Beach. We then head east through the Ardennes to Belgium, where passengers can crouch in the foxholes and learn about the Battle of the Bulge and the Siege of Bastogne. Our journey ends in Germany, where we learn about the context of the Nazi regime, a sobering visit to the very first concentration camp of Dachau, and we top off the tour with a day trip to the famous Eagle's Nest. This trip is tailored for patriots who want to pay their respects and learn new details along the way. Explore the D-Day Anniversary Tour via the link below and join us on one of our tours.
One of my objectives tonight is to kind of provide a path for you all to explore things with too. You can find things on Google Earth, you can find things on YouTube about all these things, and just take a deep, there's so many rabbit holes you can get a deep dive into. So anyway, with that in mind, let's move on. We're gonna, okay, there we are. So, been through this.
To your right, Randy, is your presentation.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Now what we're going to do here is I'm going to do a little quick thing here. This is how you find Google Earth. If you got Gmail, you go to here, roll down, Google Earth. We're going to start at Connect2Christ Church is where we're at right now. And then what we're going to do is go to Normandy. They spell it differently than we do. Normandy, France. And so let's make this big. And let's go here. Here we're going around the world. This is Normandy. Normandy is not just the beach. It's a place about the size of a large, medium, large state there, okay? And what I wanted to show you here is that this is where the landing was, right in here on Utah Beach, Omaha, Gold Sword, and Juneau here, Gold, Juneau, and Sword there. This is about 90 miles from here to here. The Germans were duped into thinking that the invasion was going to happen over here because it's so close. But this was 90 miles across here to get to the coastline here. They had fake tanks, they had inflatable tanks, they had Patton over there, they had them focused over here in London. But the real invasion was down along here. They parachuted in back behind the lines, 101st Airborne parachuted in here. How many of y'all have heard of St. Mary-Glise? Okay. That was in the movie, and I'm going to give you a couple of different references. That was The Longest Day movie with John Wayne. It's a black and white movie in 1962. And so St. Mary-Glise is about 5 miles, okay, to the coastline. So these guys parachuted in behind the lines with rifles, ammunition, and a little bit of food. They are immediately into enemy territory, completely surrounded, and they are reliant totally upon the beach landing being successful, and then the beach troops coming in to relieve them. So it's got to happen, or they're not going to make it there. And you can see this is all farmland around here, all over everywhere there. Let's go back to here. So here we are leaving. I went over there with a broken ankle and moved on from there. This is St. Mary-Glise. This church was built in the 11th century. If you notice, there's a paratrooper hanging off here with a mannequin there. This was to symbolize the guy that came in, and it was documented or presented in the longest day. He actually landed on this spire over here, but they hang it over there because you have this big open area here where a lot of the tourists gather there. And we're going to go to to Google Earth.
Randy, how many paratroopers landed on the spires?
Two. And so we're going to zoom in here. We're going to go to that church. There's the Airborne Museum. Now, one thing I want to show you about going to Google Earth is if you click on these purple icons, it's going to come up with pictures. And you can explore things for it. It's got all of these different pictures in here that you can just scoot right through and see the exhibits. And there is a lot to see. When they have the anniversaries of D-Day, they've got all of these war reenactors out there. C-47 was a troop transport plane that dropped them and everything. There's just a lot of pictures there, but I'm just wanting to show you that so you can explore these things. Now here is, we're going to get rid of that. Here's the church at St. Mary-Galise. This is that courtyard I was telling you about. What?
Look.
Over here? What happened to Google Earth? Okay. All right. Well. Sounds interesting. Yeah. We'll go ahead. I can go on without Google Earth. It made it very. Did you see it scoop over to Normandy? Yeah. It did. Okay. All right. We're just going to go on then. Technology is wonderful. There it is. Okay. All right. So here we are. The little spire right there is the paratrooper hanging. So you got this courtyard here where a lot of the battle happened here. Couple things, the stories here. Either this place or this place was the headquarters of the German commander for St. Mary-Galise. And in the middle of the night, all these paratroopers start raining in. And one of them was unfortunate enough to land right in the courtyard, and the German commander went out there while these guys were coming down. He's taking his pistol and shooting at these guys in the air, and this guy landed right in the courtyard, and he goes to shoot him, and he's out of bullets, and he's scrambling to get his clip and everything, and his second in command says, "Wait, let's take him as a prisoner, and we'll interrogate him." He goes, "Oh, okay." So they took him off as a prisoner. So many guys kept raining down that 30 minutes later, that guy turned his pistol around, handed it to the guy, and said, "I surrender." And he became the prisoner then. So it was crazy. But there's all kinds of battles here. Now we're going to go here to the street view, and we're going to click right here and watch what happens here. There's the church. There's the paratrooper hanging up there. And we can scan around the courtyard here. There's a wrought iron fence along here. I'm going to remember that. It's right across from the church there. And they even have a Roman era little obelisk monument there. If you get in close, you can see bullet holes still in it. And the reason why I'm telling you this is that there was a paratrooper that came down. He got hung up top here, and what saved his life was another paratrooper came down and landed here, and there's a German right here, and that German shot the American paratrooper 3 times. He was mortally wounded, but that paratrooper still turned around and shot the German and killed the German. And that allowed this guy to escape. He was low enough that he could cut his lines and get down. And then he escaped and then joined the battle. This guy on the back side of the church was too high up to do that, and he just faked like, he was dead, and eventually he was captured and everything. But he survived, and he actually went back to St. Mary-Galise.
Wasn't there a fire that was illuminating?
Yes, there was a house fire that they had a whole bucket brigade. The Germans had gotten all the people out, and they had a bucket brigade trying to put this fire out, and there was two or three of the paratroopers landed right in the fire. So, quite unfortunate there. Okay, so now, get back to this. Are we up here again? Good, okay. So here we are at St. Mary-Galise. You got it? There it is there, okay. 11th century church, there's the paratrooper up there, there's a little close-up. They keep that up there and they maintain it. And every year on D-Day, they have these massive reenactments and everything and celebrations there. And there's the spire that the guy was caught, and he was hanging down about here, and this is where the other American was here, and he killed the German over here, and then he expired. And if you look at these little facades around here too, especially on this side, you can see bullet holes there too from what happened there. Okay, remember that wrought iron rail I told you about? That's a bullet impact. That's a bullet impact. That's a bullet impact. Inside the church, the stained glass windows are kind of fragile, so when you have concussions from bombs going off, they're one of the first things to go. And they went ahead and rebuilt the things, but what they did was they were so appreciative. And when you go around the countryside in France, typically there's a French flag and an American flag side by side. The rural people of France greatly appreciate what we did and what the veterans did for this. Politicians, not so much. But anyway, if you look at this, there's a paratrooper. There's a parachute with the wings there, airborne patch there. Can you see my arrow going around? Oh, I wish I had a laser. Okay, real quick. There's airborne patch way up the top in the center, airborne patch there. All of this down here says they have come back, meaning that all of the Allies left and then they have come back. And this one you can see one of the only places you're ever going to see the Virgin Mary with baby Jesus and paratroopers all around. Look at parachute, parachute, parachute. They're just this is like what it was. They all came down all at once. So I'm sorry y'all can't see my arrow. It's going to make it tough, but I'll get it done. Okay, now we're going to go from there to the church at Angleville-au-Plain. That's about 3 or 4 miles to the southeast. This also is an 11th century church. And why don't you think about that? 11th century is built between 1000 and 1100 AD. Next year we're going to celebrate America's 250th anniversary. This church was built 4 times as old as our country is. And if you want to go back to Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. So that's half as old. So that's how old some of this stuff is. This is the inside of the church here. And, yep. So wooden pews and everything there. It's a very small church. They also have put their stained glass windows back in. You can see the left is the airborne patch. Up at the very top is a screaming eagle. Then halfway up there is the paratroopers thing. This is the Geronimo Division. The Screaming Eagles, the 101st Airborne. Geronimo is 82nd Airborne. Then even down here we got American flag and the Statue of Liberty there. So they really appreciate and remember what we did for them. There we are, another paratrooper coming down, and that was, if you look in the bottom right there, it says June 6, 2004. That was, apparently that window was put in on the 60th anniversary. Now, this church has a very special story behind it here, and this was our local guide. This is kind of a little memory spot or altar of sorts and everything, and they have 2 pictures on there. One is Bob Wright, and the other is Ken Moore. These were the 2 medics, okay? Americans came in, and I'm going to show you this here. Okay, the church at Angleville-au-Plain is right up there at the end of the T of the road there, okay? And all around it, you can see these hedgerows. These what really complicated D-Day, because you could have a sniper sitting anywhere and cover the whole area. So as you're trying to run across open field, you get picked off. Or they could put a machine gun nest there and cover the whole giant field. And So the Americans came in and they surprised, probably landed on the right side. They came in and the Germans were surprised and they retreated. And the medics decided to turn the church into an aid station there. And there were 2 Germans up in the top of the tower that were up there with rifles. And when the Americans went by, they came down and the wounded were pouring in and everything. And the 2 Germans came down out of the tower and says, "Can we surrender?" And they said, the 2 medics said, "Yes, you can surrender. Put down your guns. And you got to help us out with all these guys." And before it was, too far into it, they were taking wheelbarrows from the surrounding houses, and they were going out and getting the wounded, and putting them in wheelbarrows and bringing them into the church. And they brought Germans and Americans in there, okay? And so that's what complicated it so much. And shortly after that, the Germans got their act together, and then they came pushing back through, and the American commander comes through and yells in the church, "We're having to fall back. You guys you 2 medics got to decide if you're coming with us or you're going to stay here." And they said, "We're medics, we're needed here, we're staying here," not knowing whether the Germans were going to come in and shoot them or not. So they're in there taking care of all the wounded, some Germans, mostly Americans. And then shortly after that, the German commander comes in and looks around and sees that they're taking care of things. He says, "Are you willing to take care of some of our wounded too?" And they said, "Yes, but the rule is you got to leave your gun outside, but you can bring the wounded in here." So then they put a red cross on the door, and this became a recognized site, and this battle went on back and forth for like 3 days. The Americans were ahead, then the Germans were pushing back, and then the Americans, and back and forth for like 3 days. And all of these, and nobody's supposed to shoot at the church, but the windows are blown out and from the mortar rounds and things like that. And one mortar round crashed through the ceiling, and stucco and all that stuff came down and hit Ken Moore on the head. So that's the other medic, and he's there having to be tended to by Bob Wright. So you got one medic taking care of all of these, and the mortar round that hit there was a dud. That's what the cracked floor is. It was a dud. And the guy was so angry, he went and he picked up the dud and he threw it out the window. And they're taking care of all of these people and everything. And they're laying on the pews. And afterwards, after the battle was finally over and everything, the pastor or father of the church and the nuns went in there to start cleaning it up. And what you're looking at there is 81-year-old blood from D-Day. There's Pastor Marion and my wife Linda there and everything, but he decided that they were not going to clean it up, they were going to leave it there as a memory and everything. So I don't know if this church is functional or not. It's a small community of 100 houses or less around there, 100 people. But they made the right decision. I think I've searched through on YouTube. I think this church sat there boarded up for like 20 years after D-Day, and then they decided they would start, refurbishing it, and then they came across this and decided they were going to turn it into a thing. Now, Robert Wright, the medic, went back years and years later and established, a bond with the people there in that community. And when he died, he wanted to be buried there, but the problem is that it was just a small little church and there was no real room for a full thing, so he had his ashes interred there at the church at Angleville, Au Plain. And here's the monument that's put there. The bottom half is in English. It says, "In honor and recognition of Robert Wright and Kenneth Moore, medics, 2nd Battalion, 501st Parachute Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne Division, for humane and life-saving care rendered to the combatants and a child, to 80 combatants and a child in this church in June of 1944. This was actually the first place that we stopped at, and it's like, okay, this is real, this is serious stuff. From there, we went on to Utah Beach, and this marker, they landed first on Utah Beach. That's that little northern slope on that coast of France there. And they have these little markers all throughout Europe. And this is the 0 marker up there. At the top says 0 kilometers. And then they have them throughout Europe. As the lines advance, they would put the dates on there and put the kilometers there as well. Here's the monument on Utah Beach that you saw artificial intelligence put in motion there. This is the coastline there. The coastline had steep cliffs kind of all around, and there were these certain little passes that you could get through. So they had to concentrate their landings on those passes. The Germans knew they were going to be there, and they had set up all these defensive positions because the tanks can't, obviously, and trucks can't climb over the cliffs. You have to go through these low passes. So when you look around, you can see here's a bunker here, right there. And then here's another bunker that got hit here. If you look at it, you can see, set this over here a little bit so I can get back and forth. This used to be all concrete up here like this, but that's a shell impact. That's a shell impact. That's a shell impact. That's a shell impact. So it hit, exploded the concrete out, and it left the wire rebar there. See if I can get back to Google Earth. Back here. Get out of that street view. So, okay, we're going to go back to street view. We're going to stand right here and, oh, look. You can see it on Google Earth. Okay. The beach was probably 200 to 400 yards wide at low tide, and they went in on low tide, so all the obstructions and the things meant to ensnare the landing craft would be seen. You see on Google Earth, you can pan around like this, see all the people there. They had a long way to run without any protection. And there's the little pass they had to get through. These were not steep cliffs, but they were still steep enough that trucks and tanks couldn't get over them, so they had to funnel their way through there. Okay, now we're going to stop at the German cemetery in the area. We do have American cemeteries we're going to go to. This is the entrance to the German cemetery. Only one person can fit through at a time. And it's made out of a dark gray granite. And they have these series of crosses, 5 crosses with a tall one in the middle. I'm not quite sure exactly what the significance of that was. Here's the monument in the very central part of the cemetery. And then if you wonder who is the most famous person, the most visited site is Michael Whitman. He was a German tank ace. You know, when you become an ace flying a plane at 5 kills, he had 130 to 138 tank kills. He just had superior tactics and superior tanks and artillery and everything. And they had to trap him, and they had to get him out of there because he was killing so many tanks. So they set up a situation where they had a couple of Sherman tanks come in. They knew where he was. They fired a couple of shots, and they turned around and took off. And he took off after him and went over a hill and down a hill. They had lined up on each side to nail him. And when a tank, you wonder why they got 5 together. That's because when armor-piercing shells hit the inside of a tank, there's nothing but pieces left. And you can't say this is this guy and this is this guy. And they bury them all together. And also, it's obvious that normally there would be green grass around it, but it is the most commonly visited site in the German cemetery, so the grass just doesn't grow there. Too many people come in and stand there. Point du Hoc. Point du Hoc was, we're going to go back to Google Earth on this. It's kind of significant here because part of Point du Hoc, they were supposed to have a German artillery emplacement there, and that little point went out on the coastline, and then what they did is they shot straight up and down the beach. They weren't trying to shoot necessarily offshore at the ships. They were trying to shoot straight down the beach because they, were protecting the beaches, and they knew if people got far enough, on the beach and inland, then they were going to lose the battle. So let's escape that, and we're going to go back to Google Earth again. We're going to go to Point du Hoc. There we go, Point du Hoc. So that's not the one I'm talking about. Let me get, I know where it is. We'll go right there is Point du Hoc. And once again, they have these little things. If you come and you click on this, you're going to come up with all kinds of pictures to review. And it's a nice way to explore and go there and visit it yourself there to some extent there. Now, Point du Hoc was a place that the Allies were very careful and fearful of because of these gun emplacements. You got my mouse working good. And so they bombed this place to smithereens. Every one of these little spots is a bomb crater. Every one of them. And what happened here was that the Army Rangers came in here. Those are cliffs that are about 80 feet. We're going to go to 3D. Look at the cliffs they had to climb. And another part of the story was they got off in the wrong direction. The whole time this invasion is going on, the current was going south to north. So they think they're going in here, but the current's taking them further north. And then so they went too far north, and they had to come against the current all the way down here. And they're using hemp ropes, and they've got these rockets to shoot grappling hooks up to the top of the cliffs. And the hemp ropes got all wet, and they did not take into account the extra weight of the water. So they got up to these cliffs and they shot, and some of the hooks made it up, most of them didn't, because it was just too heavy. The rope was too heavy. And they found other ways like this to get up here. They could get it to shoot up low and then go up there, and that's how they got up there. And the Germans are shooting down at them while they're going up. And that battle went on for quite a while, for days there as well. And the guns were actually moved out of it. There weren't guns there because it had been bombed so heavily, and the artillery pieces were too valuable. They put the guns back here somewhere out of the area of bombing. So they got all the way up there, and they got the point, but the guns weren't there. This was where Reagan did his 40th anniversary speech at Point du Hoc, where he talked about the boys at Point du Hoc. All right, not that. And right there is where the monument is there. That little vertical piece there. There. He did a speech with that little spire in the background and everything, right on top of a German bunker there. So here we go. Back to Google Earth. Now we're going to go to Omaha Beach. Utah was, of the 5 different beaches, Utah was not as catastrophic as the other. The most catastrophic beach was Omaha. That was the bloodiest one. Part of the reason was that when they did the bombing run, they sent the bombers perpendicular to the coastline, and the bombers were so afraid that they were going to drop their bombs on their own troops that they waited an extra second. Well, when you're flying 300 miles an hour, an extra second's probably a quarter or half a mile. So all the bombs went in the land behind the actual, all the fortifications. So it basically just alerted the Germans that something big's coming. And they didn't really do that much damage there with the bombing. So, and another thing here too, I wanted to show you a little bit. This is a very cool thing to do. I don't know how many of you all have found anything with artificial intelligence yet. But the nice thing about finding out information, and I'm telling you this so you can research and look at more things like this. Start guessing what the temperature of the water was there. It's summertime now.
62.
Okay, what was the water temperature June 6th? The nice thing about Perplexity and these artificial intelligence, they will, instead of giving you a link where you got to go look at a database to look it up, they compose an answer there. Water temperature on June 6th was 45 to 50 degrees. Okay? Oh. So all the stuff that's going on, these guys haven't been able to sleep probably for 24 hours knowing this is coming. They were supposed to go on June 5th, but the weather was so bad they delayed it one day, so they geared it all up, and then they had to wind it back down, and then they geared it up again, and these guys probably haven't got a lot of sleep, and they're coming in here. A lot of them are seasick. They're throwing up and all kind of things. Yes?
What are the two flags with the American flag?
There's France and America, and I don't know what the one in the middle is. No, it wouldn't be Italy because we're in France, but maybe it's the city. Am I seeing city of something? I don't know. First-hand accounts of soldiers who participated in D-Day landings consistently described the water as miserably cold, estimated temperatures 45 to 50 degree range. Many landing troops noted the extreme chill of the English Channel as they waded to shore. So, I mean, this is the value of something like Perplexity, when you can ask for a water temperature at a specific site on a certain date on a famous thing like this. So don't be bashful about using the artificial intelligence there. So we're going to go back to here. Okay. Okay, we're going to skip that one. This is one of the passes that goes through that they had to come and fight to get so they could go through there. And once again, when you go through there, they had it set up so it was like a kill zone. And if you look up at the top, right there is a machine gun nest. And this arrow's gone again. Okay. Give me a drumstick.
Here you go.
Okay. That box is a machine gun nest. And you can see the beach is to the left because it's sloping down that way. So here we are. I went to Perplexity. I said, show me landing craft images from D-Day. And so these are the black and white are historical images. So there's the guys looking to go in there. There's other already in place there up in the front on the beach and everything. Smoke coming across there. And there they are jumping out. They're waist deep to chest deep. There are some guys that drowned because they went in too deep. I think if you think about Fort DeSoto, and by the way, If you want to talk about latitudes, Maine is about 45 degrees latitude, like 45-degree angle. Normandy is about 50 degrees, so this is north of Maine. That's why it's 45 degrees in the middle of summer. I think probably most of the little dots there on the beach are probably casualties because they're laying down and there's some stains around them. And there's quite an accumulation of them all around here. I don't know exactly what this is all about here, but here's your different landing craft and everything. When you see somebody laying down with their legs spread like that, they're not, they're gone. Looks like little ants all over the beach there, and then your landing crafts coming in. Look at how many different landing crafts are on the beach there. This is probably later in the afternoon, possibly the next day. Everybody's just walking around because the lines have moved inshore and they've eliminated all of the German batteries on the coastline here. And there is just an incredible assembly of ships there to get all this in. If they had come in through that little spot in Calais, they wouldn't have been able to pour in enough troops. But by having a big, broad beachhead, they could have all of these landing craft happen all at once. They could establish a substantial beachhead that was too wide for the Germans to defend. The Germans didn't know where it was going to be, and they held their Panzer tank divisions in the rear for probably 24 to 36 hours before they released them to go in, and by then we already had the beachhead. There's probably 80 ships there. And look at all the tanks. Can you imagine all of that had to be assembled over in England? It all had to be loaded into the ships to take them across the channel. When the very first landing craft came there, they went back empty to get the next group of guys to come in. When they came in then they had casualties to bring back. And they talked about what an awful trip that was because, first of all, the troops that went over there got seasick and they threw up in the bottom of the landing craft. And then they're bringing the wounded in there, and they're bleeding and all kinds of things happening there too. So this was a grim situation, but they kept pushing on through. This is what the veterans did for freedom. The dead, they had to put them somewhere, so they picked a spot that was up off of the beach, above the high water line, and they had a preliminary cemetery where they put them in and they marked the graves and everything. And then after the war, they moved them up to the other cemetery where they are now. And we're going to go back to Google Earth. Normandy American Cemetery. Okay, that original cemetery was somewhere along here. We just were going by in the bus and they just stopped and said, there it is. So it was somewhere along here where that little bitty monument was, where the first thing was here. And it's a very nice cemetery. They got a reflecting pool here. Garden of the Missing, where they don't know where they went. You can see the visitor center here. Now we're going to a lot of sacrifice there. Very well manicured, grounds. It's kind of Kentucky bluegrass kind of grass that they have growing there too. And here we have what Eisenhower said. He says, all who shall hereafter live in freedom will here be reminded to these men and their comrades we owe a great debt to be paid with grateful remembrance of their sacrifice and with the high resolve that the cause for which they died shall live eternally. We have Teddy Roosevelt Jr.'s gravestone here. His marker here. He was a Medal of Honor winner. He was a 2-star general, 52 years old, and he walked with a cane, and he insisted on going in on the landing to help be eyes, in the front to help communicate to the rear about we need to do this and we need to do that, we need to move here. And he, pressed them on when they all landed on the beach, and some of them were afraid to move up the beach. He said, let's go, let's get off the beach, and directed things. And he died about a month and a half into it of a heart attack. He didn't get shot, he had a heart attack there. But the Medal of Honor winners are gold letters there. And there are a lot of them, a lot of people that are not Medal of Honor winners, but even a lot of unmarked graves there. Price of freedom of 350,000 American personnel who took part in the D-Day invasion, including 156,000 troops who landed on Normandy's beaches. Approximately 9,000 were casualties on June 6th. By the end of the campaign for Normandy, the Allies suffered more than 200,000 casualties and over 50,000 killed. Remember, Normandy's not the beach, it's that big province, okay? The Normandy American Cemetery holds the remains of 9,387 Americans and memorializes 1,557 on the walls of the missing. So they aren't markers, they never knew what happened to their son or their brother or their husbands. They just never came back. And so they're put on walls of the missing. And when they identify them, then they put a star by it. So they sometimes go back and do DNA and that kind of thing. But it's incredible big sacrifice there. Escape. Okay. Now we're going to go to Google Earth. Has anybody heard about the Mulberry Harbors? You know what that is? It was a temporary harbor. There were 2 Mulberry Harbors set up. There are Manches. Okay. Notice this little line coming out here. You got my arrow right up here. See this coming out here? Those were breakwaters of the Mulberry Harbor. Mulberry Harbors, if you just keep coming up with the landing craft, that's a very inefficient way to get, it's necessary at the beginning, but then you want to really pour it on and have many, many more trucks and tanks and jeeps and personnel and everything and supplies, the food, the medical equipment and everything and first aid stuff, and have that pour in massive quantities. And you need a deep water port for that. And the deep water ports were still held by Germany. One was Cherbourg and the other was Le Havre. And so they set up these Mulberry Harbors very quickly. The Mulberry Harbors were designed by, actually they weren't designed by Winston Churchill, it was his idea. They were something that he envisioned that you have to be able to assemble very quickly. You have to have these segmental things, the little bridge sections and everything, and you're going to come in and set them up so you can have it functional within like 3 days, something like that. And the engineer said, this is impossible. He says, I didn't ask you if it was impossible. I said, figure it out, do it, And so he did, or they did. And so let's take a look here again. Now, there were two Mulberry Harbors. One was Mulberry A, which means Mulberry American. That was set up at Utah Beach. And then there was Mulberry B, which in B meant British. Mulberry B. Okay, so the problem was the American Mulberry was set up. It was functional for about 7 or 8 days, and then a storm came in and just destroyed it. That left Mulberry B as the only harbor left, and it was much bigger and much more effective there. This is the coastline you're looking at here. That's part of the Mulberry Harbor. I got my arrow back again. One of the floating concrete piers, and you can see the breakwaters going out there. Within 24 hours of the D-Day invasion, when they came in and landed on the beach, they had these old derelict ships that were floating just good enough to go over there and get them positioned right, and then they would scuttle them and sink them so that they would be breakwaters. And then from there, then they kept building, and they had other things that were constructed there that brought it together there. Let's go back, and I want to pick another spot that's a little closer. Here's more of the old concrete piers in the Mulberry Harbor. Let's see what this looks like here. A little closer there. Doesn't really show it real well, but there were two roads, one over here and one road over here that came in, and they went into the harbor there. Gold, Juno, and Sword beaches were the British, Canadian, Juno, and British Sword beaches there. Here's one of the German emplacements there. You start to deconstruct this a little bit. You start to look at this gun here. This hole over here is supposed to look the same as that. No arrow. Ding. Okay. This is supposed to look like that. But you see this little hole here. This shell came in, nicked this, and then drove the shell straight down. The shell detonated inside, and this is the side, the back of it that's opened up, and you can see the holes are out. When the metal is bent in. This one, the side panel comes out, and then the shrapnel from the explosion blew through the armor and is coming out that way. There's where it went in, and that's inside looking out. All these little holes here were rivets, probably down this side here. And it just blew that panel open like that and put all these little holes in it there. This is the Mulberry Harbor segment. It's a little confusing because everything's painted the same color green, but they've got an actual bulldozer in here in the middle of that. But these were the little sections that were made. And if you look at the end, it's a little round ball here, a little round ball back here. Those were made to fit on top of concrete floating piers. There it is looking at you can see the bulldozer from the front there. Basically a one-lane road there, so to speak. Now here's the Mulberry Harbor setup. And yeah, I'm really kind of disappointed. I had this nice thing about this big that showed a panoramic view of the Mulberry Harbor, and there were 4 different piers that went out there, but one of them, the main one, went out from the shoreline. There was a dock across the end and another one that way, so they could have a circular pattern. If you just have a single dock, you got to go out, load up, everybody has to wait, and then you got to go back. But if you've got that circular pattern going, you can be much, much more efficient. These are medic trucks The shorelines in there, these are carrying the wounded to come out to put onto the ships to take them back to England. And we want to remember, too, in veterans, it's not just the riflemen, the fighter pilots, the tank crews, and the sailors who are veterans. It's also the engineers, the truck drivers, the cooks, the nurses, the people who identify and bury the dead, right down to the people who manage the garbage, who are also veterans. It is a giant effort. Everybody in the uniform helps out here. And certainly the first category, they're really in harm's way, but they can't do their job without proper support. So everybody's a veteran that was in the uniform during that time. Now from here, we're going to move to Bastogne. We're through with the Normandy part, and we're going to go to Bastogne. Bastogne is also known as Battle of the Bulge. You're 1,145 kilometers there. Okay, complexity. How many? How many miles is 1,145 kilometers? 711 miles. That's roughly here from here up to between Washington, D.C. and New York City, something in that range there. So that's how far they've advanced very quickly. This whole war, when they did D-Day, it started on June 6th, and the war actually ended May 8th. So it was less than a year. Once we got in and had just overwhelming supplies and materials, we were the great arsenal of democracy. It ended pretty quick. Battle of the Bulge. So, all right, what happened with Battle of the Bulge? France. Is my arrow working? No. Okay. So this is France. Normandy is way over here. We pushed the Germans all the way back to what is this? I think about the Siegfried line here. And Hitler decided he had to throw it. He had to stop it once and for all. And his idea was that he would pour a bunch of people in here, and then if he could go up and get to the coastline, he would have these Canadian, British, and American, the 9th Army and the 1st Army, all surrounded. This is Patton's 3rd Army, and the paratroopers from Easy Company, 101st Airborne, they were sent in to Bastogne because these guys were overextended, they weren't equipped very well, and the Germans, and it was a surprise invasion. Then the weather got real bad, so they went in. They did not have adequate clothing. They did not have enough ammunition. They were taking ammunition off the people that were coming out of there that were defeated, and it was right in December, in early January of 1944, which is one of the coldest, winters on record there. And once again, local knowledge is so helpful. This guy his name is Henri. He's 92. He was 9 years old when the whole Battle of the Bulge happened. He says, I remember P-47s and P-51s coming and strafing the German positions. He says, I remember hundreds of bombers flying overhead in formation to go bomb Germany. Now, we look up and we see 2 or 3 planes, like hundreds of bombers flying overhead on the way to Germany. Just a massive, massive effort. And if you look beside him, there's a hole there, that little shiny spots. That's a hole that this particular tank crew was out in a field, and they thought they were safe, and they got outside to stretch their legs and have lunch, and Germans lined them up and hit the tank there. And they immediately surrendered. They were out of the tank and everything. And anyways, and then they also got hit in the back. That's John Haley. He's checking the oil level on the tank. That's what John would do, right? So there's another impact back there. This tank is in the town square of Bastogne there. They also have just a great exhibit in there. I could spend a week in there, but we only had like 3 hours. So, but it just everything going on. One of the coolest things in there was this mechanic's truck. You got to have a way to fix the stuff when it goes bad. This mechanic's truck is what happened there. It's like a little hardware store or shop or something there. You have a truck here. This is a light shining down on the workbench here. A little closer in there, you can see that. And you've got some little things in the background there. Some can jacks there. A welder there. Back here, I think, is an air compressor. You're looking in the bed of the tank in there. You can see they got a metal lathe here, and they got a bench grinder there. There's a vise, and then this is an air compressor over here, I think, to keep the tanks running, keep the Jeeps running. This is a Sherman tank. That's Linda on the left there. And they had a little opening in there where you could stick your head inside and take a look. Looks kind of complicated in there. I think that I've never been in a tank, except scuba diving, and all that was gone. But it looks like something that they looked out of the top to see what's ahead of them. I think this is probably a 50 caliber machine gun. This is probably the breech for loading the shells in there, and the little track to help them load shells. It's all very organized and compact and everything there. This is the back of John Haley's head again. I had it there for precise perspective, right? Now you deconstruct this. This was probably a non-armor piercing shell that hit the side of the tank. This was an armor piercing shell, and you can see it kind of creates all these little dings in the thing. That's going in, it's folded in, but all of this is erupted and coming out. So this shell went in there and set off the other shells that were inside the tank. So it just blew up. And here's even, a shell that went out of the other side of the tank. It's way back where that little light is where that's coming out there. And that's what it looks like inside now. You remember how organized and compact everything was? Now there's almost nothing in there, which is why when the tank goes, you bury everybody all in one common grave. Bois Jacques Forest. This is the specific site where Easy Company's zone was in the defense of Bastogne. They were completely surrounded. It was fogged over, so the planes couldn't drop in any kind of supplies or ammunition. They went in there with minimum ammunition. They did not have good enough clothes. They're trying to get blankets to stay, warm in. It's the coldest winter ever. The temperatures. I forget. Let's look that up too. Did I spell it right? No, I spelled a bunch of things wrong, didn't I? Temperature. Bastogne with a capital B, December with a capital D. Nah, we don't want to do that. 20 degrees Fahrenheit. Nighttime lows could be between -10 and -20. Frostbite, hypothermia, everything. The movie Band of Brothers really did this particular part of the series very well. It was just very cool. I can remember being a general dentist, and I had a patient come in, World War II veteran and everything. Hey, we're in Florida, a little bit chilly like that. He just says, "I'm just so glad I'm not in Bastogne." And I was 30 years old, and I'm like, I knew that was Battle of the Bulge, but I didn't realize the significance. I didn't realize how cold it was. I didn't realize what adverse circumstances they were put into and everything. But that was really something there. Easy Company's combat zone, December 22nd. So that was just about 20 days that they had to hold out. And completely surrounded by the Germans, and Bastogne is that one little pocket there down there at the bottom. Now here's the Bois Jacques Forest. Do I have my mouse? Nope. Okay. It's two-dimensional photos. It doesn't show very well, but this was one of the foxholes from Easy Company. There's another one here. There's another one right here. These are the original foxholes. There's Henri there. They start out 4 to 5 feet deep, but then after all the years, the rain, washes the sand down in them, tries to fill them in. Plus, you have the leaves and sticks that fill in there, but they're still there. They're still there. How about that? How'd you like to be sitting in a dirt hole in 20 below? Man. Yeah. Well, the puddle would be ice. It'd be ice. It'd be ice. Now, this lane is, I'm going to go to Google Earth in just a minute. Just kind of remember that lane. Up over the hill and down the hill is the town of Foy. So they're fighting in there, and you got the Germans on one side, the Americans on the other side, and it's just a mess there. And let me go to where's Jacques Forest in Belgium? Okay. Now this is the town of Foy right here. Okay. Let me see where we are. Okay. Oh. Okay. Never mind. Okay. But we'll go back to the slide presentation here now. Anyway, so here we go. In the town of Foy, it's a small town, again. This is a window that a German sniper was in, and you can look and see all the bullet holes around the window. These are all bullet holes, a lot here. There's probably a German here, and all the shots were coming this way and impacting the building behind them. This is where one of their Easy Company guys named Shifty made a shot and got that guy. But the way he got him was pretty interesting. They had come out of the woods, and they're coming to take Foy, and this German sniper's up there picking people off, and they finally figured out what window he was in. And in order to get him, the Germans can sit back inside in the shadows, and you can't see them to shoot them or anything. And they can see everything that's going on out there. And these two guys made a deal. He says, all right, he says, I'm going to run from this building to that building. You line up and you get that sniper. He goes, and don't miss. This guy's getting ready to run out in the open, knowing there's a sniper. And he did it. He runs out there, and sure enough, the sniper comes out, and he's trying to line it up. In the meantime, the other guy takes him out. It's called Shifty's Shot. And if you go to YouTube, you can look that up. And it'll give you the video on it and talk about that particular building there. Also in Bastogne, they had an aid station there that was minimally supplied. This is also in the Band of Brothers movie. And they had 2 nurses in there and all kinds of wounded in there. And the Germans bombed it one night, and one of them was the nurses here. One of them was Renee Lamar, and this little plaque is the site where the building used to be. But what happened was the bomb hit the site, killed Renee Lamar, and about 30 of the wounded in the building. She was called the Angel of Bastogne. In the movie, they said that she had some very calming touch to the people that come in that were so wounded, horribly wounded and everything. Another one was Augusta Chewy. She was called the Forgotten Angel Bastogne because she was not in that building when that happened. She was in another site. And anyways, they finally tracked her down and everything, and she ended up coming back and being buried in Bastogne also there. The American Cemetery at Luxembourg. Let me escape and see if we can get back to Google. Is that showing up there? Okay. All right. Luxembourg American Cemetery. I've got quite a few little photographs of this here. Little different arrangement there. That's significant. That's Patton's grave there. Now, the gate is over here. When you look through, you see this little chapel here, okay? Just to kind of get you oriented there. There's the chapel there, and they have two other little monuments there. Lots and lots of sacrifice. There's a Jewish soldier. Okay, now, Patton's grave is up there towards the front. Patton died about 6 or 8 months after the war ended. He was part of the occupying forces trying to pull everything back together, and he was in a Jeep accident. And he died within 3 days after he was in the accident, and he had 2 remaining wishes. He said he wanted to be, first of all, he says he did not want anybody to blame the driver. It was not the driver's fault. And his second wish, he wanted to be buried in the cemetery with his men. So, it's the front gate. This is the chapel there. And if you zoom in on that, right at the feet there above the door, it says, "Here is enshrined the memory of valor and sacrifice." When you go inside the chapel, it says, "Take unto thyself, O Lord, the souls of the valorous, so that they may dwell in thy glory." And the other wall on the other side says, "Grant us the grace to fearlessly contend against evil and to make no peace with oppression." Must have freedom. "I give unto them eternal life, and they shall never perish." Okay, this is Linda in front of Patton's grave. You remember all that other grave, everything was all worn out. Patton was originally buried with his troops like Teddy Roosevelt Jr., but the ground was just bare all the time because so many people came up there, so they moved him over in this direction here and built some hedges around it. And his wife wanted to be buried with him, but they would not allow it because she was not a war veteran. So the compromise was that she was cremated, and then they sprinkled her ashes in the hedges around his grave. This is a concentration camp. This was the first concentration camp that the Germans put together. It started out as a work camp. And what they did was they built this thing, and it was, a lot of it was to punish people or social misfits or whatever. They had a problem and they needed to be punished. And they sent them to Dachau, and they worked them very hard and fed them poorly, and then they initially released them back into society, and everybody's like, you don't want to go to Dachau. And that was how it started out, and then it got progressively worse. Okay. We're at Dachau. You might recognize some of these names. Auschwitz, Bergen-Belsen, Buchenwald. The dark things are the major camps. All these other little dots were feeder camps. So it's not just the main things, these other ones were smaller ones. They had wire around them. They lived in tents and mud huts, and at a certain point they might ship them to the other bigger ones. But this was part of their whole process. And at Dachau they had experimental gas chambers. They did not have the fully functional gas chambers like Auschwitz and Buchenwald and places like that. But that is a tremendous system to have to exterminate people. This is the entrance to Dachau. The thing on the top is a guard station, and they'd have a machine gun or a rifleman up there to get people that were trying to get over the fence, shoot them. So we walked on through. There's another guard tower straight across there. This is the roll call ground. Every morning, all the prisoners in the barracks on the left had to come out and assemble, and on the right side is a big U-shaped building that was the input processing center to bring them in there. And they were made to assemble on the roll call ground. Lost my mouse. Is it up here? Okay, so this is all of them assembling. That's that same tower you just saw. Then there's another section that comes around here, and these are the barracks back here. I'm going to read you I can't really read that very well, but it's smaller on that screen there. The prisoners had to assemble on roll call ground every morning and evening for roll call. In all weather conditions, they were forced to stand at attention motionless for about an hour. Sometimes even the dead had to be dragged out to the roll call ground to be counted. If the number of prisoners on the roll call did not match the official head count, for example, after an attempted escape, the torture could last. This torture, just standing there at attention, could last many hours. It often happened that the sick and weak prisoners collapsed during roll call. The other prisoners were forbidden to help them. On the roll call ground, the SS carried out punishments for all prisoners to see. For the final months before liberation, large transports of prisoners arrived at Dachau and were brought first to roll call ground. Many sick and exhausted prisoners died there. Now these prisoners, if you look at them, they're all standing at attention, shoulder to shoulder, and head down. They were not allowed to look at the SS guard. They had to stand like that, motionless, in all weather conditions, and the longest they ever had to stand was 22 hours straight at attention. 22 hours. This is the setup of the camp here. Okay. This was the gate where you entered. We showed you that gate. This is the barracks over here. This is the roll call ground. This was the processing center where you entered. These are all the barracks here. We're gonna go down this little lane here. There's trees planted on either side here. Back here was the crematory and the experimental gas chambers. All of this area was SS barracks and operations over here. And one other thing too, notice this little line, that's a ditch with water in it. It's about 4 feet wide there. And then there's a wire fence, an electrified wire fence out beyond that there. So here, after the war, they just basically, it was so disease and nasty and dirty in there, they went ahead and burned all the barracks down. And sometime about 1962, they decided they needed to have them reconstructed, at least 2 of them, for memory's sake, so people can see what it's like inside. So you're standing on the roll call ground there, looking at the barracks, and this is that row that goes down the middle with the trees on each side, headed towards the back. There's a sample of the barracks and the rebuilt bunks there. Little different types of bunks there, but that was their whole world, And a lot of them were used for heavy labor, and then they'd come back there, and that was where they slept. And they were supposed to keep their beds perfectly neat and tidy, or they could get punished for it harshly. There's the commode room, and that other little thing was where you could go in and wash your face, and that you couldn't really get a shower. You just kind of could rinse off and get your face cleaned up a little bit there. That was the shower room, I guess you would say. You're looking down there, and there's another guard tower on the left, and the granite in the ground is the footprints of the previous barracks on the left side. And that's another guard tower, and there's the footprint of the barracks on the right side. The German government wants their students, their youth, to understand this so it never happens again. And one of the requirements is they spend a significant amount of time studying World War II. I think it's in 9th or 10th grade. Which was it? Do anybody know? But they are then, one of their things they have to do is they have to go to one of these concentration camps and walk through and see that it's real, it really happened, and imagine what it was like to go through that. So the Germans are very particular by making sure their kids understand they never do this again. That's would have been barracks number 28, the footprint of barracks number 28. Here's the ditch there. That's about 4 feet wide, and then the fence there is electrified. And there are some prisoners that got, so you go through the water, get wet up real good, and then you get to the electric fence, There are some people that just crumbled under the pressure. They couldn't stand it. They wanted to end it all, and they would intentionally go through that and jump on the wire fence to be electrocuted, and that'd be the quick way out. The guard towers are lined up so they can look straight down the fence and shoot anybody that seems like they're going to escape. And this is a sculpture that's put up that's right by the processing center back in the roll call yard facing the processing center. You've got all of these figures. It looks like quite a something, but this is like wire fence here. Barbed wire fence there, barbed wire fence. This is the contorted faces and images of people that got on the electric fence. That's what that is. Sculpture is all about there. Part of working people very hard and not feeding them well is they get very thin, and there's not much of them left there, so that when you put in the crematorium, it doesn't take that long to burn them and to cremate them. I asked him about what kind of I said, was that where you put the charcoal in there and there and there? And he says, yeah. I said, how long does it take to cremate a body like that? He says, well, that's a good question. He says, they started out the war with anthracite coal, which burned a lot hotter, and they could take about an hour or 2 to get rid of them. Later on, they ran out of anthracite coal, and it was a lower temperature coal, so they would take a lot longer, like 3 hours or more. From there, we leave Dachau and we go to Munich. Even though Hitler's offices were in Berlin, and that's the political center of Germany, the actual site where Hitler got started was in this Hofbrauhaus. This was where he would go to make his speeches there, and that's the room that he made his speeches in. They're getting set up there for another movie in there to kind of chronicle it or document it. That's what all the light, scaffolding is for and everything there. But that's the exact room that Hitler made a lot of his speeches here. And it was very political, turning one group of people against another. And this is the legend from the Dachau. The prisoners had to wear these patches on there, and they had it divided out where they had them by race and everything. It's written in German, so I don't understand everything, but some of the stuff that I can see is some kind of political enemy here, an immigrant, a Bible something, didn't like the Bible something there, homosexual there, Jew, Star of David here, Pole. This is a German trader, I think, here. And then they would put these patches and the numbers on the prisoners there. So dividing people into groups is not a good thing, obviously. Now from there, we're going to go to Eagle's Nest, and then we're going to wrap it up here. Eagle's Nest was Hitler's mountaintop retreat. The Germans call it the Kielstein House. It's actually in Austria, and it was a mountaintop retreat. The Nazi Party gave it to Hitler as a birthday present. And it was up on top of the mountain. It was used primarily to impress and entertain heads of state. So we're going to go to Google Earth one last time here. Spell that wrong. Kielstein House, we're just going to go Eagle's Nest. Okay. You got it? Is it up there? That's the... Let me get the correct spelling there. Kielstein House is what it is. So let me go back to K-E-H-L. That'll get it. Kielstein House. Berchtesgaden is the community down at the foot of the Eagle's Nest, and that was where a lot of the German officers and political figures would all congregate there so they could cook up what they were going to do next. So there's the Kielstein House. Now watch this. Isn't that something? You can imagine the views up there. And we're just going to go to some of our pictures here. All right, so here we are. That's where we started out. You have to get on the tour bus and you go at these switchback roads. We're going to get to a parking lot, and then we got to walk through a tunnel to get to an elevator that goes up into the Kielstein House there. So, arrow working? Okay. That is the Kielstein House, Eagle's Nest, and then this is a zoom in on it to see what it looks like over the top of those trees there. Once we arrive, you walk down a tunnel, and this was all highly choreographed for the all of the heads of state and everything. And you went down this long tunnel here in the base of the mountain. You got to the holding room, waiting for this elevator to come down. You get in the elevator, and it's a gold-plated elevator. Gold-plated elevator. So they're there to impress the foreign heads of state there. Get up to the top. I think this is Mary's picture. She found the flowers and looks very pretty and everything. Look at those views. We planned this trip in June because that was the best chance to have clear skies. Yeah. Now, the Kielstein house, did I lose my arrow? Yeah, the Kielstein house is backwards, and you're looking up at a little crucifix up here. So Mary and I walked up to the crucifix. And there's where you find Mary, at the foot of the cross. Okay? And then we turn around and look back down, and there's the Kielstein house, and look at the spectacular views down there. And on that path down there, I was walking down that path, and I looked down, and I saw this nail. And it was a very old, corroded nail, and see, it's got a wood rail there. That's not the original wood rail. I think I got one of the nails from one of the old original wood rails, and I saw it, and I slipped it in my pocket, and I brought it back.
They called me about that.
Did you admit to it? No. Yeah. It was just sitting on the ground there, so they probably don't know it's gone. Okay, so Easy Company, this is the final place that they ended up. They went through all of this. They went and liberated one of the concentration camps and everything. It's getting down to the end of the war, and so it kind of became a little bit of a race. And Easy Company were the ones that made it up to the top here. And of course, there's liquor bottles and cabinets and everything. They got up there, and a couple of the Germans were up there, committed suicide while they were up there. And the war ended while they were up there on May 8th, 1945, and the command came down from on high to hold your positions. So they're holding their positions up there on the top of the Eagle's Nest there. This is the inside of the banquet room there. That fireplace, they believe that the marble was given to Hitler by Mussolini because it's the red and white, the maroon and white marble, probably from Italy. And if you look inside the hearth there, you can see the date that says 1938. And there's Linda and Pastor Mary and John and I, just absolutely spectacular views. They don't have those views in Florida. And here we are with one of our last slides here. They got a restaurant up there. That's what keeps the place going and making money in addition to the historical value. So we were up there, and John and I are enjoying a beer, and Pastor Mary looks concerned because the beer is disappearing too quickly. So there we are. If you want to learn more, Saving Private Ryan has the most realistic D-Day invasion recreation. That was actually a couple years before the Band of Brothers series. The Band of Brothers series is probably the most accurate for the process of going through the war and everything. It's free on Netflix. The Longest Day was with John Wayne in it. It covers the whole front. So they even have the British capture of the Pegasus Bridge, which we didn't even cover. We did see it though. Google Earth, remember you go to the little colored icons, you zoom in and then those colored icons appear. If you click on the colored icons, then it's got a whole bunch of pictures there. And YouTube searches, there was the Battle of Carentan, which is in the Band of Brothers series that I didn't even cover. But there was one group of guys that the guy's name was Robert Cole. We used to have a dentist in town named Robert Cole. And this guy was a Medal of Honor winner, and his group was responsible for capturing a series of 4 bridges, and at the very end, they even had to do a bayonet charge. They fixed bayonets and charged into the German fire because they were pinned down for an hour or more, and they're getting picked off one by one. And so Robert Cole says, we can't stay here. We're gonna die. So he, did a bayonet charge, and they went in there. And if you look up YouTube, and the name is Robert Cole Medal of Honor winner, they have a black and white video of him describing that whole assault and everything. And it's very, very interesting to see that and everything. He ended up dying in, I think he's buried in that Luxembourg American cemetery and everything. But anyway, it was fun. I hope y'all learned a lot. I hope y'all got interested in looking and researching more, because it's important that we know our history and teach it to the young ones in the group and everything too. But
Thank you, Randy.
thank you.
Great, Randy.
All right,
That was great.
Mary, somebody who wants to
We're going to sing a couple songs.
Oh, that's right. Sing a couple songs. What? Turn the mic off.
Okay, if you want to stand and sing with us, Battle Hymn of the Republic. 2, 2, 3, 4.
Eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He has loosed the faithful lightning of his terrible sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. He has sounded forth the trumpet that shall never call retreat. He is sifting out the hearts of men before his judgment seat. Oh, lift my soul to answer him, be jubilant my feet. Our God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with the glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make them holy, let us live to make them free, while God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on.
All right, and we're going to end it with God Bless America.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with
Good job. Thank you.